Hello everyone. In this video, we will talk about one of the most important topics in engineering. That is design process. Design process is very important in manufacturing or constructing everything, especially for the engineering projects. So before starting producing anything, you need to think about this product. You need to think about the project. And the most important part of thinking is designing the steps that is needed for producing something, that is needed for constructing something. For today's lecture, we will have some minor topics to dive into the topic. First of all, we will talk about design. What is design? And then we will talk about the process of designing something, the steps of designing something. Then we will talk about the criteria and constraints. Before designing anything, we should define what are the main properties or what are the main problems we may have during manufacturing or producing something. Then we will talk about two important terms in engineering that are innovation and invention. Then we will talk about the steps for design process in detail. We will have 9 different steps. Each step will be discussed in detail. What is design? Design is a creative planning process that leads to useful products and systems. In the previous lecture, we talked about the 3 main types of thinking. One of the most important types of thinking was creative thinking. Creative thinking is the main part of designing a product or designing a service. So design is a creative planning process. Means design is not something that you can do in, for example, 5 minutes, because it is a process. It is a procedure for doing something. So you need some time and you need some steps to finalize it or to achieve it. So design is a creative planning process. It is creative. Why? Because you are creating something new. It is planning. Why? Because you are designing something in according to the some desired properties and in according to the resources that you will have, like time and money. And it is a process. Why? Because it includes some steps to finalize or to accomplish something. Okay, so design is a creative planning process. So now we know that design is a creative planning process. So what is the result? The result is it leads to useful products and systems. When you are planning for producing something, the result is a product. The result is a system. The result is a service. The result is an accomplished project. So design can lead us to some useful services that people can use, that simplifies the life of every individual in the society. So this is why design should be very accurate. Design should be very precise to define the main problems of the society and finding accurate solutions and effective solutions for them. Now, this is about design. What is design process? A design process is a systematic problem-solving strategy. So as we stated earlier, it is a systematic problem-solving. Why do we need to design? Okay, so any design should be based on some types of problems. We may have a problem. We must have a problem, because while you have a problem, then you are trying to find a solution for it. It means you are creating something new for solving this problem. So a design process is a systematic problem solving strategy. A systematic problem solving strategy with criteria and constraints. Okay, we will talk about criteria and constraints, but briefly, criteria is the properties of something. Constraints are the problems that or the limitations that you may have while you want to produce something. Okay, so design process is a systematic problem solving strategy with criteria and constraints, because in most of the cases the way is not clear. Okay, you have, in most of the cases you have some problems, you have some limitations, the limitation of time, the limitation of budget, the limitation of the social awareness. So you have some constraints, you have to deal with those criteria and constraints to produce a systematic problem solving design. Okay, so this process, the process of designing something used to develop many possible solutions or many alternatives to solve or satisfy human needs or wants. Human needs and or wants. We have two main parts of the human life, okay, related to engineering projects. The first thing is called human needs. The second one is called human wants. Human needs are basically the basic needs of life, like water, infrastructure, houses, highways, computers. So those are the needs of life, okay, or mobility within the cities. Wants are those things that you will use it for, just like an entertainment. Okay, so satisfying human needs and wants by solving different problems in the process of designing is very important to be covered, to be identified in any systematic problem solving strategy. To narrow down the possible solutions to one final choice. When you want to design something, most probably you will have many possible solutions, many possible alternatives. So design process is consists of choosing one of those alternatives or narrowing down the alternatives to choose one possible solution that is the most effective for the people and the most effective for the human needs and wants. So design process is a series of steps that engineers use to guide them as they solve problems. So as we stated earlier, it is a procedure. There are some steps for designing something, and those steps are very important for engineers, and it is just like a guidance to solve a specific problem. No matter what is your specialty, no matter what is your department of engineering, the steps of designing something is the same, because the steps are general. It guides you to choose one possible solution for any kind of problems. Okay, it is cyclical and can begin at any step or move back and forth between steps. You know, it is design is a flexible process. It means you can revise the design in any step of the construction of something, or in any step of manufacturing of something. It can be revised during the implementation of any system. So it is just like a cycle. Okay, the cycle includes testing, designing, building. Testing, designing, building. So you can revise the design in any step, and also you can add or remove any criteria while accomplishing the goals of the service or the product. The design process is never final. There are always multiple solutions to a specific problem. So most probably while designing something, you are creating many alternatives for solving a specific problem. The design process is influenced by requirements called criteria and constraints. Okay, criteria and constraints is very important to be understood. Now we will talk about criteria and constraints, because any design is influenced by criteria and constraints. What is criteria? Criteria identify the desired elements and features of a product or system, and usually related to their purpose or function. Simply, criteria is the quality of something, or the properties of something, or characteristics of something. For example, when you want to produce a smartphone, okay, what kind of smartphone do you want? How many cameras should be put inside the smartphone? Okay, what is the quality of the cameras? Okay, what is the quality of calling? What are the main features of the screen? So criteria means the properties or the features of a specific product or service or system. Okay, so sometimes you are producing a system for managing something, for managing a country. Sometimes you are producing a service for developing a solution for a specific problem in the society. So criteria means the features, characteristics, and properties of any product, system, or service. Okay, we can simplify the idea of the criteria by asking some questions. How will the solution actually work? Okay, so you are talking about the properties of the solution. The properties of the solution. How will the solution actually work? What materials should I use? Because the materials are identifying the properties of the product. Or you can say, what should the product look like so that the people will buy it? Okay, so how can people buy something? So you should know the desires of people. You should know the requirements of people. Then you can identify the criteria or the properties of your product. This is about criteria. So constraints. What are constraints? Constraints such as size and cost establish the limits of a design. Okay, the limits on a design. So constraints normally are the limitations that you will have during manufacturing, during producing something. It means you will have a lack of something. For example, you may have a lack of budget or money. You may have a lack of time. You may have a lack of different resources. You may have a lack of materials. So when you have a problem in the process of designing something, this problem or this inefficiency is called constraints. So again, by asking some questions, you can simplify the idea of constraints. Will it be completed by the deadline? So for example, sometimes you may need 6 months for producing something. What if you couldn't produce it within 6 months? So for example, if you complete it in 1 year, so this is called a constraint. This is called a problem or a barrier for your project, for accomplishing the task or accomplishing the goal of your project. What size should it be? Okay, the size of your project, the size of your product. So sometimes it may be a problem for you for designing something with a suitable size. it depends on the type of the project. If it is a construction project, the size may be something. If it is a project related to the computers or IT services, the size may be something else. So it depends on the type of the project, but the point is the size and the cost is very important while you are designing something. So those are called constraints. This is about the criteria and constraints that is very important to understand or proceed the process of designing a product or service or a system. Now we have two different and important terms related to the design. We have to distinguish between innovation and invention. What is innovation and what is invention? Invention simply is a new idea. It is a new idea that has not been existed before. Invention, a device or process originated after study and experiment. It means there is something that has been produced that has never been existed before, but you or someone has found it based on study and experiment. This is called invention. Innovation means improvement, okay, doing some improvement on an existing device or process. For example, the first light bulb is invented, but the other types of light bulb is innovated. So the second one that will be produced by doing some improvement is for the original device is called innovation. And also it is the same for this example. The first bicycle is invented, but the other types of bicycle has been innovated, because the other types are only improvements for the first type. This is about innovation and invention. Now we will talk about the main steps of a design process. There are 9 different steps for a design process. It is very important to follow these steps while designing anything. No matter what kind of product or service do you want to produce, you should follow these steps very carefully. Each step will give you some idea, and also each step needs some skills and knowledge to be accomplished. The first step is defining the problem. Second is brainstorming. We will talk about these steps in detail one by one. The third one is research, developing ideas, choosing the best idea, model or prototype, test and evaluate, improving the design, communicate the results. These 9 steps are very important to follow, and they are the basics for designing anything. Of course, there are some steps behind each step. For example, defining the problem is not only one single step. There may be some other steps, some minor steps inside each of these steps. Here we will talk about the steps of design process one by one. Step 1, define the problem. The first step of anything is identifying the problem. You should find a problem to be solved. Okay, defining the problem is like conducting detective work. It is just like a detection. Okay, you are detecting your work to find the problem that maybe in the process or maybe in the project. You must examine the evidence and form some conclusions. Defining the problem is the most important step, because all the other steps are based on this step. You should define the problem very clearly. okay, then you can go for the other steps. Step two is brainstorming. Brainstorming involves bringing a group of people together to generate many different ideas. All ideas are considered, none are criticized. Brainstorming is a step that you are collecting ideas, you are collecting opinions, different opinions for this specific type of problem, because uh, the idea of people may change, and every individual will have a specific point of view that may be important for solving this type of problem. You cannot solve any problem only based on your opinions. So you should collect the opinion of other people, then you can generate some alternatives for, or some solutions for this specific type of problem. So step two is very important to start brainstorming about the problem that you have found in your project. Step three is research. Research is very important, especially for academicians and engineers. You sometimes cannot find a specific solution for a specific problem based on the opinion of other people. So you should search, you should read, you should use different search engines to find the previous works that has been done on this type of problem. So research may require going to library, using computer databases, writing letters, performing experiments, and asking questions. So especially for engineers, it is very important to have the skill of research. Okay, gathering information is very important, especially for the practical projects. Normally in the practical projects you will face a problem that you have not been faced before, or that you have not been studied before in your school. So for engineers it is very important to have the skill of research and gathering new information. Gathering information and investigate existing technologies related to the problem. Sometimes the same problem might been happened before in somewhere. There may be a specific solution, there may be a specific computer program, or a device, or a technological innovation for solving this type of problem. So it is very important to find enough tools to solve your problem, because it saves time for you. Talk to individuals who share this problem and could benefit from possible solutions. So in the previous step we talked about brainstorming, and here it is very important to talk about this problem for in front of other people, because some people may shorten your time and may shorten the way that you use for solving this problem. Step 4, developing ideas. Whenever you have finished your research, now it is time to develop new ideas to create something new, because in the first, second, and third steps you gathered enough information about the problem. Now it is time for developing some new ideas, some new solutions for the problem. Developing multiple ideas that will solve the problem and meet the requirements. In the previous 3 steps, you identified the requirements, you identified the needs, you identified the main goals that you may have or you may achieve. So here you should work for achieving these goals. You should develop and generate some alternatives for achieving the previous goals that you have set. Step 5 is choosing the best idea. In the previous step, you generated some alternatives, but it is impossible to use all of them. Now you will choose the best option, among those options that you have generated. Decide on an idea that best meets the criteria that has been the criteria that have been generated before and identified before. Then based on the criteria and constraints, you can decide on choosing the best solution or the best option, and has the least number of negative characteristics. Because in most of the cases, when you have some alternatives for solving a specific problem, most probably there are some negative pointers for this alternative. So you will choose an alternative with least number of negative pointers. And here there are some notice in this step. List the strengths and weaknesses of each alternative. This will help you while choosing the best alternative. Optimizing for better performance and safety. Safety and performance is very important. You should choose something that is easy to perform, that's easy to implement. Trade-off: give up one desirable trait for another. Step 6: model or prototype. Model is very important in engineering works. Modeling, because sometimes you will not have enough idea about your project. This is not only for construction projects. This is also valid for projects related to computers, like for example designing a program, designing an application, or for the project is related to petroleum engineering, project is related to electrical engineering. So all departments of engineering are focused on designing something based on the model. Modeling is used to gather additional information and test the design ideas. Sometimes models are used to find the problems that may happen in the future in the real project. So a realistic drawing is or rendering is help you visualize what the solution will look like in real life. So it gives you an idea about the real project. So this is why equipping engineers with different skills related to modeling is very important. And you as an engineering student need to know some computer programs for modeling, for 3D modeling, no matter what is your specialty, no matter what is your department. So you should know some modeling programs that will help you to visualize your projects in the future. Of course, there are many modeling programs, so choosing one of them is based on your department, is based on your field of study. Scale models or mock-ups are small, accurate representation of the final product. So we talked about this point. So modeling is a representation of the real project. Sometimes you will face some problems in the models that is exactly the same to the problems in the real live projects. 3D CAD computer-aided designs can show objects in action, and also a prototype is a working model. It looks and functions just like the finished product. In this step, you will have enough idea about the project, even if the project is not executed practically. In step 7, you will test and evaluate your models and your alternative, because here you decided on something, you chose the best alternative for your problem, and you have a model. Now you should test and evaluate your model. Models of design solutions must be tested, because if you don't test your model, there may be some problem inside your design or in one of the steps of your design, then you will not feel it. But if you test it, okay, before implementing or before executing the alternative in the real life project, you will know, and then you will take corrective actions. So important questions must be answered during the evaluation. There are some questions that you should ask yourself while testing and evaluating your model. The first thing is it safe for people and the environment? So it is very important, especially for the environment, because environment is also related to people, to the lives of people. So whatever your project is, it should be safe for people and for environment. Is it comfortable? So this is also a question that should be answered. Is it affordable? Is it aesthetically pleasing? Okay, does it look good? Okay, this is also important for any type of project to look good. And will it last as long as it needs to? Okay, so the lifetime of the project is very important to think about it. And does it meet the criteria and constraints? Does it work? Okay, so you should answer all those questions while testing and evaluating your alternative. Step 8, improve the design. In the previous step, you tested and evaluated your model and your alternative. Now you should know what are the weak points of your design. If you know the weak points of your design, then you should take corrective actions. After studying all test data and evaluating design solutions, you may need to make changes. Sometimes you do some changes, you will remove something, you will add something new. So this is called improving the design. So you are improving the design. This is the time to improve design before production starts. As I stated earlier, you know the weak points and also the strong points of your design. You should encourage your strong points and also minimize your negative points in the design. This is called improvement in the design. The final step, once you improve the design, now the final step is sharing your design ideas with others to prove the design is worth you for manufacturing. This is the final step that is very important. Now you are ready to share your work to other people, and people will communicate it, and people may have their comments on your work. After that, it will be ready for implementation, or it will be ready for execution. So um, uh, communicating the result is maybe by preparing a poster, or maybe by publishing your drawings in a conference, or maybe by clarifying um, the process and the data by some charts, prototypes, PowerPoint presentations, or preparing a report, or discussing with a group of experts related to your project. Uh, this final step is very important to be accurate, because sometimes the idea of other people will enrich your design and will enrich your project. Uh, this was about engineering design process. We talked about the engineering design process. What is design? What are the main terms related to design, like criteria and constraints? And we talked about invention and innovation. Then we talked about the main steps for design process. We had 9 different steps for designing any product or any service. Thank you very much for asking questions. We will have an online meeting, and we will inform you about the date and time of the online meeting.